Hello and welcome everybody to part 2 of Setup to Success, Essential Tactics for Hardware Asset Management. My name is Randy Scrapper. I'm a Principal Product Success Architect here at ServiceNow and also a member of the Ranger team. I'm happy today to talk to you about a new feature in HAM called HAM Maturity, which was released in the Washington, D.C. release. So let's go ahead and get started. This is our safe harbor notice. This presentation may contain some forward-looking statements based on our beliefs and assumptions, and things might change before the product actually gets out there. Our agenda today is we're going to start off by talking about the ITAM capability blueprint and the importance of it. Next, we'll do an overview of the HAM maturity features and all the different stages. However, we're going to spend most of our time focusing on the 11 maturity features in that crawl stage. So here is the asset management capability blueprint model. We use this, as the ITAM Rangers use this quite frequently to represent to our clients the critical role in trustworthy data and asset management. So as we're looking at this model, Tier 1 is trustworthy data. And this is the information that is foundational to asset management. I found a quote that says, "The foundation of effective asset management is accurate, up-to-date, and reliable data." Truly stating that everything is based off of the data that is in the system that we can report on. So what is foundational data? We're talking about user information, location, departments, and all this needs to be in your system and maintained constantly. Now, when we start talking about some of the HAM foundational data for that trustworthy data, we're talking about making sure that you have stock rooms associated to locations. You want to make sure your models, both hardware and consumable models, are in there properly. And getting normalized, as well as asset and CI information. So it is important to note here that when we talk about CI information and trustworthy information, you're going to want to collaborate with your ITAM team to ensure that that CI data, the asset data, is being captured through discovery and being reported back to the instance on a regular basis. So the ITAM folks are vital for the regular discovery of all your assets in your environment. And these assets should be discovered within 30 days. So if these assets or CIs are not being scanned within that time frame, we consider those as stale assets, and they might distort your metrics that you're reporting on. So it's a good thing to at the very beginning, making sure your ITAM folks are collaborating with you and through this whole process. One of the other things I'd like to point out is taking the time to identify what you want to track and all the necessary attributes that you want to track. Do you want to track consumables? Taking this time to making sure that what is important for the organization is what you're tracking. And then to ensure your accuracy, you want to make sure that you have processes in place to help track these assets through the life cycle according to best practices. And in Tier 2, so once you get through Tier 1 in your foundational data and you have a strong foundation of trustworthy data, now you can start moving on to practical management. And this tier emphasizes the enhancing of the controls and knowing what you have to get immediate benefits. Here you're going to want to start implementing some policies and procedures to make sure that these assets are getting updated through the life cycle. In Tier 2, efficiency through integration. This tier focuses on integrating and automation through ITAM through the other functions in the system, like request and procurement, ITSM, so that, updating it through change request. Asset managers should aim to automate and streamline workflows for the optimum performance. So As we know, ITAM personnel need to have accurate records of assets through their life cycle to be able to report on them to make smart business decisions. Asset managements want to track them and ServiceNow as a single source of record from receiving through disposal. And we know that many times ITAM team is very small and they have to rely on others to update and keep their data maintained. And this sometimes is a very manual process with a lot of man hours and a lot of attention to detail with all these changes. In this tier, we're going to start to automate some of those processes by using some of the out-of-the-box workflows to help maintain this accuracy. And in the top tier, this is where you're shooting for best in class. This is where you're exemplifying all the right practices, best in class practices to achieve your ultimate goals. And remember, this is a blueprint that serves as a valuable reference to assess your goals and processes over the maturity throughout your life cycle or ITAM journey. Today, however, we're going to be focusing on the crawl stage in the hand maturity assessment, and that's going to be in that tier one. So we're going to start focusing on, tier one trustworthy data in here. And in later sessions, we'll cover the other maturity stages, both walk and run. But today we're going to focus on that crawl. But first, let's take a look at what the SAMs are, the HAM Success Portal and the HAM Maturity Model assessment is. So now let's take a look at the HAM Maturity Assessment. So many customers have purchased hardware asset management solution, but they haven't yet installed it all the way. They haven't installed all the plugins for the modules, or they have the modules installed, but they're not fully utilizing all its capabilities. So this is a way to do an all-in-one adoption accelerator. It gives you a predefined roadmap of how to go to each step of the way of crawl, walk, and run until developing a solid program. And it serves as a checklist for achieving all your goals. Now the roadmap is divided into 3 different sections, as you can see here. We have the crawl stage, we have the walk stage, and we have the run stage. So there's 3 different ones. There's a total of 34 maturity items. Now we're going to focus on the crawl stage, but let's go ahead and take a look at the different stages, right? And so in the crawl stage, you'll see that there's 11 maturity items, all the way from the ham guided setup to stock rooms and hardware models. These are the ones we'll cover today that we're talking about. But in this phase marks the beginning of your ham journey, right? And so this is where you're going to implement and develop your ham program. And these key activities help you set up and configure the ham module according to best practices by defining asset models and creating stock rooms, and even starting to create some of the core processes and a little bit of automation in this first initial stage. We'll also focus a little bit on the normalization process and making sure those standardized or your standard asset models and consumable models are being normalized in the system so they can track. You can record on those and you can actually track it through the life cycle. And we'll talk a little bit more about each one of these in the future. In the walk phase, you'll see that when we click over into the walk phase, this is the next phase. And this phase is going to help you continue to establish those processes and procedures and policies that need to be in place to execute your ham roadmap. But we're going to focus on automating some of those manual processes that were established in the crawl phase. And we're going to start to look forward to how we can automate some of those more complex workflows in the out-of-the-box tools and workflows of the ham product. As you see here, there's 10 different walk maturity items, from asset refresh to asset task, if you want to deploy these things or swap them out, bulk orders, asset reservations, asset reclaim, asset donation. So if you're going to be donating to a charitable event, this is a way to do it. Lease expiration. So if you're leasing assets, and we're going to start to pull that information and do some automation around there. Asset audit. So you will want to make sure that you're tracking and know what you have in stock and where it's at as far as even if it's deployed. And so these asset audits might be something that you might want to set up and schedule to make sure that your information is up to date and accurate. Advanced shipping notifications. So as you get a little bit down the maturity and you have assets being shipped to you, you go ahead and create those assets as they're before they get delivered, and your team can just receive them at the time when they come in. And consuming local stock. So is when you start to get into a little bit more maturity, you're going to be able to have local stock, or you're going to have stock locations and distribution centers, service locations. So these are something that you're going to want to kind of move into. So this is in the walk stage, these 10 items. And then when you jump into the run stage, you have about 16 items here. And this is where you've implemented some mature and advanced, some automated processes around centralizing the hardware asset tracking and management. By leveraging some of these new features in the run phase and capabilities is going to help you achieve those goals. Some of those ones are the zero touch refresh, or making sure that you have your scanners up and running, making sure you have maybe do RFID scanner, so you can have that set up if you're doing something like that. If you're in the stock room, so you're going to start using pallets to do that. Some of the other features, or some of the other things in here would be like the asset repair and RMAs. So if something gets broken, does it get repaired on site through an asset repair, or does it get sent off through an RMA? So these are some of the maturity items that you'll want to focus in on the run stage, and making sure you do regular evaluation of your processes to kind of help make sure that you're getting the best in class. So let's focus on the items in the crawl stage. All right. Now let's start talking about the crawl stage and the different items, maturity items in the crawl stage. So in the crawl stage, you'll begin your asset journey, and you're starting to, kind of develop and implement your new program. And in this stage, you'll be preparing your environment to use HAM effectively. So most customers, many of them already might have some of these in place, but we do recommend that it's beneficial if you review each of these items to identify any potential gaps that you might have overlooked as you're trying to set it up. So at this stage, you will, we'll do the setup and configuration of HAM. We'll establish some of those core processes. We'll define the hardware and consumable models. And we'll start to create and maintain those stock rooms. And stock rooms are very important. They play a big role in HAM, as they are the center of all the out-of-the-box workflows. So as we look at the crawl tiles that are items that are in the crawl phase, so we click on crawl. These are the 11 items that we have here that are in this stage. And let's go through each one of these to ensure that everybody understands what they mean and what they are, as well as why we're recommending them. So the first maturity item we recommend doing is the HAM guided setup. So after installing the HAM plugin from the store, we highly encourage you to go through the HAM guided setup. This process provides a step-by-step walkthrough to ensure all the necessary configurations are addressed when setting up ham, including normalization. While this step isn't mandatory, we highly recommend it to avoid any missing critical steps. You will also see that if you go through the ham guided setup, you will be achieving some of the other crawl maturity items that we have listed out. I've included a screenshot here of the steps that are in the ham guided setup to highlight the various tasks that need attention when you'll be going through it. In the configuration, we'll look at the resource category, opting in, setting up the content service. We'll start looking at those, making sure your asset automations and your asset actions, and especially when you're on the incident and change is a new feature. When you turn this on, you'll have to make sure you address those asset actions for both asset and change. The asset lifecycle catalog and workflows, as well as contract workflows and the asset map view. So this is in the first section, you'll worry about the configuration of the tool. And in the second section, we'll in the guided setup, focuses on setting up normalization, making sure your content downloads jobs are you're opted in, and those jobs are actually running, and hardware models are actually being normalized. Now, I'm a part of the Ranger team, as I spoke to you a little bit earlier, and we're brought in to tackle some complex and difficult situations that the customers are experiencing. However, in our spare time, we do training material for customers to achieve more value from the product more quickly. So I encourage everybody that has questions to kind of go out and check out either our hardware asset management or our software asset management Ask the Ranger series. And currently there's about 41 SAM videos and close to 31 ham videos out there. And we update these on a weekly basis. I've added a QR code here so you guys could take a second and scan it to take you to those the YouTube channel. And the next maturity item that we're going to talk about is the ham resource categories opt-in. And this is important to opt into asset management categories based on your licensing subscription. You'll have the flexibility to select and purchase only the resource categories that you use. So you want to make sure that this is done to avoid some costs that you might occur if you opt into something that you're not licensed for. So as I was mentioning in the previous slide, if you opt into these resource categories, it's something that you're licensed for. You'll be able to get the normalization, you'll have asset actions, you'll be able to use the workflows. And normally this is a one-time activity. And then on the reverse side, as you opt into these, you're going to want to opt out of the resource categories that you're not licensed for. So here's a little screenshot of the ham resource categories, and this is the new extended resource categories that just came out recently as well. And as you can see, each of these resource categories you can either opt in or opt out, and it also gives you the subscription unit ratio. So if we're taking a look here, we see that end user computers are 4:1. So 4 end user computers or 4 computers add up to 1 subscription unit. And those subscription units are what you purchase when you're actually buying the ham product. We made it a little bit more cost effective if you're trying to do monitors. We're doing 15:1, as whereas servers, we're going to keep at the 1:1 ratio. Now, there's a really good article in the ServiceNow docs that I put in here, opt in and opt out of ham license resource categories. We recommend kind of going and take a look at these SAM docs here. I have added a QR code to take you to that doc if you need to. The next maturity item is the HAM Asset Workspace. Now, this workspace gives a user-friendly interface that is designed to manage, all your hardware assets and consumable assets in one space. This is where your asset management team is going to be conducting and doing most of their work. And the workspace needs to be activated through a plugin, SN underscore ITAM underscore workspace. Now, if you're upgrading from an older version, you might need to go in and install this plugin manually. However, the newer versions of HAM, when you install it, either the HAM or SAM Pro, when you install the newer versions, the workspace is activated by default. In order to find out if your workspace is up and running, you can just go over to the navigation and you can type in HAM or SAM or Hardware Asset Workspace, or you can go right up to the top here where it says Workspaces, click on this and go to a drop down to see which workspaces are available to you. We have a great series out there on the YouTube channel called Asset Rangers series, the one I spoke about earlier. We have a great video here that talks about the overview of the hardware workspace, and we talk about some of the dashboards. I'm not going to go into each of the functionalities or navigating through the workspace. This video will walk you through each one of those. Next item the maturity item we're going to be looking at is the stock rooms. And this is what we use to manage your asset inventory and consumable inventory. So what are stock rooms and why are they important? So stock rooms are essential locations in using most of the out-of-the-box workflows, right? And so stock rooms are where the assets and consumables they come in and they're received off the POs. They're also a place where these items are stored for deployment. So when the assets come in, they're received there, they're stored there. You'll need to kind of report on them to be able to fulfill requests from the orders in the stock rooms. Stock rooms are also where transfer orders start and end. So if you're going to do a transfer order, they're going to start in a stock room and then they're going to end in a stock room. Stock rooms are also a place where RMAs start and that they end their process. So when a defective piece of hardware comes back to a stock room because it gets swapped out for a part that's working, that defective part goes back to the stock room and that RMA process then starts there. It can go through the process and it can either be an on-site fix or it can actually go back to the vendor to be either repaired or replaced. But that all starts in that stock room. And finally, the stock room is where items are, sent out for disposal. So at the end of their life cycle, these items are sent out. So from the stock room. So again, it's important to highlight that all, if not most of the out-of-the-box HAM workflows use stock rooms. So it's a critical part to make sure that your stock rooms are up to date and accurate so you can help maintain that trustworthy data. So this is a new stockroom UI. Wow, it looks really good, right? And this new stock UI puts it all of your inventory into one thing. So we're looking at a stock room here, and you'll be able to see, your different stock room orders, your RMA orders, your transfer orders, some shipments that are kind of either going or coming, and some of your loan request orders. You have a little bit of information around your stock room, as well as, if you have any stockroom rules that are set up, and you'll get into those a little bit later in your maturity. But when you're setting up a stock room, it's going to be very important to make sure you have your location. Okay, you're going to make sure you want to have a manager, that's someone that's controlling that stock room, and you're going to want to be able to identify the type. So is it a central warehouse? Is it a stock room, or such? So as your asset management maturity increases, you're going to start to look at those implementing some stock rules. And what these stock rules can do is to notify asset managers when a stock level gets below a certain a point. And it can automatically generate either a notification or even a PO request that can automatically be created when those stocks numbers get a little bit lower than par. Now, here's a great community article that we have out there in the ServiceNow community called a Quick Start Guide to Stock Rooms. I'll leave this up here for a second to go ahead and scan that QR code if you'd like. Now, we also have several 5 videos from the Ask the Ranger series. First one being around stock rooms. First one being creating a stock room using the hardware workspace, using stock rules for inventory control, configuring service locations, setting up and the managing of, understanding distribution channels, configuration and implementation, and creating and utilizing pallets, aisles, and spaces. This is a guide to using that. So these are 5 different Ask the Ranger videos that we have out there. Like I said, I'll leave this up here for a second to take some pictures of the QR codes to take you to those Ask the Ranger series. Next maturity item is the creation of hardware models. Now, the creation of hardware models is a crucial step in establishing trustworthy data in your asset management framework. Now, hardware and software models are the cornerstone of your HAM data, and they're usually defined by some essential information, especially the hardware items, when you are creating them. The manufacturer, the product name, the model number, and the model category. These are essential to capture and try to get as accurate information on these during the creation of your asset or your model. There are some other, when you're creating your models, there are some additional attributes that you might want to consider tracking as well based off of your organization. Asset tracking, so determining if you want to create an asset or not. So if we're talking about a consumable, you might not want to create that consumable as an asset that might just want to be created as a consumable. Prime example as a mouse. That is, you will want to track those on a consumable by quantity, but not as a asset by an asset tag or serial number. Acquisition method, are you buying these? Are you purchasing these or leasing these? So if you want to specify those models, a unit cost or a salvage cost. So if you want to start doing some financial planning, you could add these into the model as well. When you have your model gets normalized, it will start to pull in that life cycle information. So here it'll give you that the life cycle information to help you better plan and going forward. Excuse me. Some of the other ones that are a little bit less used or dimensions and power usage. I find that a lot of data center asset managers use this. They like to track where their assets are. They like to do rack management, and they really need to understand the power usage of each of those racks. So that's used for some of the servers and some of the other data center assets that are out there. But you want to make sure that these models, both hardware and consumables, are created and take some time to do it when you do this, because this is going to be the integrity of your ham data. You're going to make sure that these things are being normalized. So in the next step, making sure your hardware and consumable models are being normalized is the next maturity item that we're going to talk about. You want to make sure you continually review your hardware and consumable models' normalized status, remembering that the platform works best when your assets and consumables are normalized. So assets and asset management team will be able to view the normalized asset estate on the Asset Workspace, as well as a couple other out-of-the-box reports. One thing I do recommend is setting up normalization data services. And so this is a platform capability that normalizes the company field across the platform. Now there is a guided setup that will walk you through each of the steps and configure the properties, but we do recommend doing this step as well as when you're setting up the overall platform. So what is normalization and how does it work? And as you see that assets come in through various different ways of computers and uh, mics and headphones and all sorts of things, and they come in through and have a model, product name, and manufacturer, and it all comes into ServiceNow. And what ServiceNow does is it compares it to the content and it tries to normalize the value. So, your first one might come in as MacBook, Apple, MacBook Pro 15 Apple with the model number, and somebody else might type in or fat finger a MacBook Pro a little bit differently. And we might have another one that typed in a little bit wrong. So we have a lot of maybe human error that's coming in and pulling us back. It also might be spreadsheets or data sources that discovery sources are coming in. However, what ServiceNow does is we then can normalize all three of these to the same MacBook Pro 15-inch and the model number. And this is under that display name. And so this is you're able to now run reports and understand what your environment looks like. So when you're looking at the hardware model, you want to review those hardware normalization statuses. And when you scroll down, you'll see the normalization section. In the first section, you'll see, in this first example, you'll see the fully normalized, what it will look like. It will say normalized with all the sections grayed out. You won't be able to update those because we were able to find a match. It was normalized, and this is what it was normalized to. In this next example over here, we have a partially normalized. So this was able to find the product, the manufacturer and the product, but it wasn't able to get the model number for some reason. So this is partially normalized. And what this does is it allows you to see that there's gray here and allows you to fill in the model here. If you did fill in the model here, that would go to a manually normalized status. And this final one here is if we were unable to find any matches in the content library, it does come back with this match not found. And these are something that you're going to want to make sure that you take a look at to make sure most of your hardware assets should be this fully normalized process. That's the one you're going to want to look to make sure you have. There are some out-of-the-box reports. So there's normalization on hardware reports that are out of the box, and we also have some consumables. Like I said, we want to make sure that we keep an eye on these and to try to get them as much to be fully normalized as possible. There is a normalized metrics on the workspace as well. Now there's a great community article, a quick start guide to normalization, as well as a nice video on Ask the Ranger series on normalization data services to plug in and set up. So I'm going to leave it here for a second to go ahead and scan these QR codes to take you to those artifacts. The next maturity item in the stage we're going to talk about is the content lookup portal. Now, as an asset manager, you might not have all the information to create that hardware consumable model. You might be missing the product name or the model number. And this is a way that gives your asset management team the visibility to look to see what's in the content service. So the first thing you'll need to do is make sure uh, your plugins are all set in properly. And when you're plugged in, you'll be able to go to the workspace. And in the workspace, you'll click on the content portal. Here, you're able to navigate. Once you navigate here from the workspace, here you'll be able to search either your product models or your or hardware model numbers. Now, this is a screenshot of the hardware product. So if you go ahead and click the hardware products and view all, this is what's you're gonna view. And this is a filter of all the products that are actually in the content library. And you'll be able to search those and run reports if you needed to. We have another great video installing the content library portal on Ask the Ranger series. I'm going to go ahead and leave this QR code up there for a second. But we highly recommend looking at these YouTube videos and maybe even, favoriting those YouTube channels as a reference. I know that there are many videos that I am recommending through the slides today, but there are tons of videos going up there already, and there's much more coming up your way. So I would maybe take a favoriting one of these pages. As an asset manager, it can be difficult to track all the requests and where they are in the request workflow. In this maturity item, you will set up a flow. So as we start to talk around processes and we talk around the process of hardware request workflow, I want to bring up the Now Create document, the Hardware Asset Management Process Guide on Now Create. And this is an overview of all the processes that are that could possibly be in your organization to set up. And this is a high-level view of the out-of-the-box workflows with some suggested RACI chart as well. So who's going to be responsible, who's going to be doing the actual change, who's going to be doing the information, who needs to know. So this is the process guide is a great way to kind of start your journey to make sure that you're following the best practices and those processes are aligning with what is out of the box in ServiceNow. So again, the Now Create process hardware asset management process guide is a great place to kind of start your journey to kind of look over some of the processes that you'll need to make sure you have. Now, our Ranger series, we have several ones here. We have 4 videos on Ask the Ranger series. The first one being requesting and creating and requesting the basic service catalog item. So how do you create that item? Source a hardware request by initiating the appropriate fulfillment process. Source a request or a transfer order. And source a request by employing a vendor purchase. So these are 4 videos on the Ask the Ranger YouTube channel that highly recommend going out there and check. I'll leave this up there for a second just to get the QR codes read. So as an asset manager, you're controlling those stock rooms, and you're going to have to order either some replacement stocks or as your items are starting to run low, or you probably have to order some larger orders for some upcoming projects. So through a catalog item, you're able to then place those orders that allow a one-stop spot for asset management team to go ahead and do either a restock order or some large inventory orders and process it through the track it through the process life cycle. Here is a QR code for another video on Ask the Rangers, creating an inventory stock order. So how do you create that inventory stock order? It's going to take, this video is going to walk you through how to actually create that stock order. The next item focuses on setting up your ServiceNow mobile app to be able to receive assets on a PO. Taking this manual process out of it, it's an easy way to reduce the fat finger and human mistake in there. In the later stage, we'll walk you through how to set up the mobile app to conduct audits. But today we're focusing on just doing the receiving function, since this is the first stage of the initial process of capturing that asset when it's coming into the environment, making sure that all the information that you're capturing is up to date and accurate. So you'll want to make sure you do the mobile agent, and the mobile agent does allow you to create those assets. You be either scanning them into that PO, and it can be either found on the App Store or on Google Play. And finally, the final stage of the maturity item is actually setting up the asset disposal, making sure your disposal is set up. So as an asset manager, you'll need to know what assets are disposed, when they were disposed, and be able to run reports and possibly produce some certificates of disposal or destruction if you are, in case you were in an audit and you had to report on those. So in this stage, we're adding that maturity to making sure you're able to set up the disposal workflow to allow asset managers full transparency into those assets that they are disposing and what assets they have disposed and where they're going. Now, the Rangers have a how to generate a disposal order out there on their YouTube channel, so I'll leave this up there so you can go ahead and grab that QR code. And thank you all very much, and be sure to check out all of our videos on our YouTube playlist, Ask a Ranger, the Hardware Asset Management, as well as some additional resources, ham resources. We recommend doing Now Create for that process guide, Now Learning for some learning opportunities in ham. The ham community is a great place to connect with others, as well as getting some good information on through articles and blogs and ServiceNow docs. And so these four are some additional resources that we highly recommend using. I want to thank you for your time today and look forward to talking to you in the next part of the series.